All right, so this video is going to be kind of a guideline through the process I go through whenever I want to write something easy and functional that sounds relatively good for Drumline. Okay, and I find the kind of the easiest way to do that is through writing a cadence. So we're going to write just a standard 16 bar street beat or entrance cadence. And then later on, we're going to, in another video, see how I would expand that to make a more lengthy, advanced type thing. But today, we're just going to focus on I need a cadence and I need it now. All right. So over the years, I've kind of come up with a formula for these kinds of cadences that I find serves me really well, and it allows me to not really have to think about ideas, but more think about what I'm writing for and what sections I need to upplay versus what sections I need to hide in the battery. So the formula goes like this. It's a four measure intro, all right, where I'll typically take either probably the strongest players and I'll feature them, and I'll get into more details about this in a minute. But then a four measure build, eight measures of some sort of groove, and then a roll down to an ending, which is usually just a quarter note. But yeah, so let's. I'm just gonna write a very easy, simple type thing right now, and I'll kind of talk about what I'm thinking about while I'm doing it. All right, so we're gonna pretend that my strongest section is going to be the tenors, just because they're the most melodic instrument that's going to be heard in most high school groups. Because generally, bass drums in high school, they're kind of the weaker players, and if the tuning isn't good, you're not going to hear very much melodic content from your bass drums. It's just going to be thud. All right, so for this purpose, we're going to assume that the tenors are going to have the four measure intro. All right, so I'm just going to write something for tenors really quick in this first bar, and we'll take it from there. Let's see. And my virtual drum line's going to load. Okay. Now, if you're not sure about what you're writing for tenors, one thing that I think helps, or at least it helped me when I was not experienced with writing for tenors, is to actually draw a set of tenors on a piece of paper and then take your two pointer fingers and try to play the parts you're writing with your index fingers on your drawn set of tenors. And if it lays down on that well, chances are it will probably lay down on a set of tenors well. But if not, you probably should change something. Usually, the easiest thing to change is the voicings of the drums. But we won't get into that now. All right, so here's my first measure for tenors. It's very easy. It's going to start out on the right hand. It's just going to walk up the drums and then down to drums 3 and 4. All right, so right off the bat, I'm going to copy this measure onto the third measure of my four measure intro. All right, so now the next thing becomes to write a second measure that's a little bit different from this first and third measure. All right, so I'm going to start with a rest, and maybe we keep beat 2 the same, and then let's write some 16th notes on drum 1. All right, now if you really want it to be easy, that's what I would go with. If your tenor players are a little bit more advanced, you can put them down the drums, or you can maybe do a paradiddle that ends on drum 4. But for right now, I think I like this because it's very easy. You're just on one drum, no big deal. There's not a lot of movement involved in this measure, and that's usually a good thing with beginner drum lines. All right, so we got the third measure. Now the last measure of the intro is going to be a filler measure. And let's see, I'm just going to write a little 16th note fill. Matter of fact, let's use the one that we did right before now, or the other variation. So 3 beats of 16th notes going straight down the drums, and then a quarter note on beat 4. Maybe we'll accent beats 3 and 4 as well. All right, so here is my first 4 measures for tenors. Okay, so this is my intro. All right, so what I'll do from here is I will usually, if I'm writing for cymbals, today we're going to assume that I am, I will write some hi-hat notes on the cymbals for at least the first 3 measures. Oh, Lord. Okay, and then maybe just one on beat 1 for the filler measure. All right, and maybe if I'm not writing for cymbals, I'll do essentially the same thing on drum or on the snare drum. Okay, this is a rim sound, but I don't have a stick click sound in my Finale VDL Lite, so we're just gonna pretend that it's a stick click. I'll label them as stick clicks later and it'll be fine. All right, so now let's bring the snare drums in on beats 3 and 4. Okay, that's another thing that's always a good thing to have. Whenever you can have unison rhythms between instruments, it's going to be good, because when you get here, if something sounds wrong, they can easily diagnose it, or the students can easily diagnose what's wrong and kind of help themselves fix it. Okay, so since bass drums are the weaker section, I won't have bass drums do anything for this. Generally, if your bass drums are the weakest section, they're generally the worst readers, so the less music that they have to learn up front, the better, in my opinion, especially if you're going for functionality. Okay, so here's our intro. I'm not going to play it yet, but we'll see how this sounds in just a minute. All right, so from here, we have a 4 measure build. Okay, so what I'll do is, in the spirit of just being a wonderful composer, I'll just use the copy and paste tool. Let's get rid of that. Okay, and then we'll put something more intricate on the snare drums. So let's have on the head just straight 16th notes with an accent on the downbeat. Okay, and I'll go back and add dynamics in a few minutes, but presumably that's going to be at a quiet volume, since it's not the main melodic content right now. So, but anyway, we can get to that later. So let's see, 3 measures, and let's have a crescendo on beats 3 and 4, because we're coming up to the last measure, which is a fill measure. Let's have the tenors, crescendo, everything there. All right, so now let's bring the bass drums in. Let's not be too dramatic with this. Let's see. Generally, I like to stay on unisons for most of the time when I write for beginning drum lines. Again, just because of what I talked about earlier. If somebody's out, it's going to be very obvious. Also, another thing with my VDL Lite, I don't know if anyone else has this problem, but I don't have a bass drum rim click sound. So I just kind of have to change the note head and pretend. So, you know, that's fun. But anyway, I guess it doesn't really matter when you're writing for functionality. But anyway, so let's keep the same rhythm here in this second measure, but now let's add a little bit of melodic content from the bass drums. Copy the first measure onto the third measure. Add a crescendo. Actually, that's kind of redundant. Let's just have it right here. Okay. And then let's have a very simple fill that leads in to our main groove of a cadence. Okay, so let's just be incredibly simple, and let's just have eighth notes with accents or shots on the downbeats. And I think I should call this formula the copy and paste formula. And you know what? For easiness sake, let's just have 4 quarter notes on the bass drums, but we'll accent the bass drum notes. All right, so now let's look at the cymbals. All right, so let's do some sizzles into hi-hats. Some people call them sizzle sucks. You can call them whatever you want. I call them sizzles. No big deal. This is a fairly easy rhythm for cymbal players to play. It's really easy to learn by rote. So we'll just do 3 measures of that with a crescendo. But the cool thing about that is it sounds, relatively hard, and it's not. Anyway, all right, so let's add some dynamics in here because I'm kind of getting OCD now. So the tenors at the beginning are the melody, so let's have them at mezzo forte. Let's have everything else a dynamic level under that. Okay, for here, we're going to move the snare drums to, let's have them piano, mezzo, well, you can kind of go either one here. Let's just do piano to match the snare drums. We will keep the, well, no, let's go ahead and put this at piano too. So now we've got tenors at mezzo forte and everything else at piano. So the tenor should be what stands out the most, and we're all going to crescendo to forte right here. There we go. Okay. So now let's make this look a little neater. And then let's just do a whole note for the crash cymbals right now. Just because the less they have to play, the less they're going to complain. So that's good. All right, so now we've come to 8 measures of groove. Okay, and if you really want to write more music than necessary, go ahead. But I'm again just going to copy and paste the tenor part. One really good thing about this is whatever you can kind of make it so that one section only has to learn about 5 measures worth of music to play this cadence. So that's one potential good thing if you're trying to get something done really quickly. All right. So and then let's for the fill for this last one, let's just copy and paste that again. We'll delete the dynamics, but anyway. All right. So now let's do the stereotypical snare drum 16th notes on with accents or rim shots on 2 and 4. Because there's that rhythm in almost every drum line ever in existence. Okay, so copy 1st to 3rd, and let's have just a little bit of variation in the 2nd measure, but not much. Okay, so even something as small as that will make a huge difference when you're trying to make things sound interesting versus just monotone. All right. So now let's do the bass drums again, or let's write some bass drum stuff. Let's have this. Let's copy that. So now, and then 3rd measure. Whoa, what are we doing here? All right. And then something slightly different for the 2nd measure, and I'm just going to copy and paste. Why not? Let's change that rhythm to a 1/4 note. Boom. All right, and then I will also, for the groove, I'll also put accents on all of the non-unison rims. Just because these notes, let's be honest, they usually end up getting accented anyway. So I just concede that defeat. All right. So now the cymbal part. Let's just have crashes on 2 and 4. No big deal. Okay. Oops. Okay, crash on 2 and 4. And one thing you can also do if your cymbal players are a little bit more advanced than just beginners is you can have them mirror the accents here by doing something like this. But I'm not going to do that simply because I don't want to. Generally, when you put syncopated rhythms and cymbals, especially when beginners are playing, it tends to just get really, really muddy, especially if you have more than one. All right, so then let's just copy third measure over, and we have our first 4 measures of groove. All right, so now let's do the same thing on the last 4. Okay, so we got our tenor melody, and we're just generally the second 4 measures of the groove are almost exactly the same, if not the same, with just a different fill. The only thing that I really like to change is I like to have the cymbals play all 4 quarters instead of just 2 and 4. And I'll typically add accents to this as well. Cool. All right, so now let's change the volume of this to fortissimo because it's a fill measure. All right, and then back to forte. Boom. All right, so the last thing that needs to be done for writing the notes is to write a roll down and an ending. Okay, so I'm gonna just put an ending right here. Let's end on a unison, and let's just have a whole note crash, and we'll have an accent just because, of course, we will, because we're writing for easy drumline. All right, so now there's a couple different ways to do this. You can either literally write a roll down, but I tend to not want diddles or rolls in beginning cadences. So here's what I would suggest, or here's what I typically tend to do. I have a loud note or a forte piano, and then I'll just write 16th notes, maybe accents on beat 4. What am I doing here? It's a brain fart. Good job. All right, so accents on beat 4. And we'll have this at fortissimo again. And put an accent right here. Okay, so we're at forte, so I'll just put the piano right here. And then a crescendo. All right, and that's pretty good for a snare part. So that's we'll keep that. So let's see, let's do mostly the same thing in the tenor. We can be, you can be as intricate or as not intricate as you like. This is going to be a pretty idiomatic pattern for the tenors because they're mostly staying on drum 1 here and then going down the drums and then staying on another drum. But, be as intricate as you'd like. Just make sure that your players can handle it if you decide to be more intricate. Okay. Crescendo here. Doesn't have to look great. Most of the time when I do this, I'm not writing to be published. I'm writing for someone to play, and no one's ever going to see the sheet music. Okay, let's see. And then let's just let's have one hard measure in quotation marks for the bass drums, and let's have a let's have that for the bass drums. So basses 1, 2, and 3 all play a beat of 16th notes, and then everyone comes in on beat 4. And we're just going to start that at piano. All right, and then 2. Actually, no, let's do 4 crashes. Since we've already been doing it, there's no need to stop and change it up. Okay, and we'll just add a crescendo here. Whoa, there we go. Add accent, and that's the notes written. All right. So I'm gonna record the audio for this and let you see what that sounds like, and I'll actually show you the score while it's playing. But the score will have stickings and everything else. I'm gonna assume that you can figure out how to do stickings for yourself. I'm not gonna show you my way of entering stickings because, quite frankly, no one really cares that much. But so this is the formula that I like to use when I write, especially for easy battery. Now in the next video, I'm going to take this and show you how I would make it work for something that's or someone that says, okay, my drum line is intermediate. Can you write me something there? All right, so thank you for watching. I hope this helps, and if you have any questions, please comment them down below.